What's up, everybody? So I am recapping the Real Housewives of Atlanta season 16, episode 11. It's called Let's Be Honest, and I have no other way to be. You're going to get my honest, unfiltered take every step along the way. So if you are ready, then let's go. All right, so the episode opens with my current queen, Angela Oakley, having a little date night with her husband, Charles. I don't know. Charles, this just might be your personality. It just couldn't be me. He's just not affectionate. She's like, give me a kiss. He's like, why? The producer asked him, do you love Angela? He couldn't give a straight answer. Angela, girl, I like you. And if you like it, then I love it. It couldn't be me. I need affection. I need to be adored. Okay. But anyway, so that was just like my quick thing on that. What they talked about family, and they talked about, how Angela just does a lot for her family. She bought her mom a house, and sometimes her family acts out of turn, and it's almost like they're ungrateful or spiteful. And from Angela's POV, she just wants to help. She has always wanted to be able to bless her family, and now that she's able to, it's kind of like, take it and shut up, but y'all want to cause all these problems. So it was an interesting conversation, and I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to. Charles was kind of like, then don't deal with it, walk away. Sometimes you got to have that firm boundary, and that is where I was agreeing with Charles. Some people take and take and take. Some people will throw whatever you give to them back in your face. Some people will not even acknowledge what you give them. And so it's just a matter of like what you're comfortable doing. And if you're like comfortable with them being ungrateful or acting crazy, then fine. Or if you aren't, then you have to draw that boundary somewhere. So I felt Charles in that moment. I'm a firm believer in boundaries, and I'm trying to like stick to them every day, and enforce them. But like, you got to just treat people how to treat you. You got to teach people how to treat you. And some people are the personality type that they will walk all over you if you let them. Porsha, look at you later. So, I think Charles had a good point in just kind of like, you just got to be firm. Sometimes you need to walk away. Sometimes you need to like be extra firm. But if you're uncomfortable with the dynamic right now, you got to do something to change it. So I'm with him on that. So next, Cynthia meets up with Shamea, and they have a conversation, and Cynthia's like, I just want to check on you. I just want to make sure you're okay after the event, after Porsha's pamper party event. And Shamea was like, I was feeling sad before the event, and after the event, I felt ambushed, and, I wish that we could have had a private conversation. And I'm like, what do you mean you wanted a private conversation? You had a private conversation with half of the group, and that's the only reason why it made it back to Porsha. So if you wanted a private conversation, you should have privately pulled your friend aside. Let me just say, like, I say this in almost every recap, I'm not the biggest Porsha fan. I can acknowledge that she's gorgeous and she's fun and she's funny. She has some memorable moments, but she also has a more sinister side to her, a more manipulative, controlling, duplicitous side to her that, I'm not on board with. Fine. So I just want to make that clear, even though I do have a lot of critiques for Shamea. Spoiler alert, when I get to them sitting down, there's no perfect victim. There's no, like, they're both in the wrong and they're both almost in the right. And I'll get to that later. So anyway, back to Shamea and Cynthia. So Shamea is like still trying to scapegoat the other women. And she's like, they're just driving a wedge between Porsha and I just can't believe they just ran it back to Porsha the way that they have. And just saying that they were the ones saying that Porsha's not my friend. And I'm just like, I don't know, Shamea, you're exhausting. you have talked to what, 3 separate women in this group about your grievances with Porsha. And I just listened to a bit of Drew Sidora's sit down with Carlos King. And Drew had said that, I think it was in the beginning of the season or maybe before shooting, Drew, Angela, and Shamea went out to dinner. And Shamea was like, okay, y'all got a pinky promise, like not to say anything. But I feel like now that I'm a peach holder, I should be more open about the state of Porsha and my relationship. It's really not that, the state of it is not that great right now. And I do have some grievances with her. And, I feel like it's kind of my chance now, or maybe my responsibility now, to be more forthright with that and more open with that. But I also realize it's going to look like, oh, Shamea has a peach and she's trying to destroy her friendship, or she's trying to take her friend down. And so she was really wrestling with like, should I or shouldn't I confront Porsha and how I really feel and how I really been feeling, or not necessarily confront her, but like really pull back that curtain on the relationship of Shamea and Porsha. Like, dare I do this and potentially upset Porsha, or like alienate myself from the fans because maybe I'm going to just look thirsty and look like a bad friend. And so she was really allegedly wrestling with doing this. We'll talk more about my take on that later, but that came out of Drew Sidora's mouth, of that this was something that Shamea had been thinking about. This isn't like, oh, I was mad at you because you didn't know my song in episode 2, and now I'm upset with you. Like, no, it's like years of issues that she has either swallowed or they both have swept under the rug. And now that she is supposed to show her full life, she feels like it's almost her responsibility to be like super real. And she was like wrestling with how to do that. So something that Cynthia said that I thought was also interesting was that she said that that Porsha and Shamea's friendship reminds her of her and Nini's friendship. And I said that in my last review. Make sure you watch it. There are a lot of similarities. I believe Cynthia didn't necessarily say the same things I said, but she did have that kind of broad stroke observation. So I said, y'all don't listen to me. Come on. I am a housewife connoisseur. So I feel like I'm very credentialized now. So this is where it gets juicy. So then Shamea shares with Cynthia and the audience that Shamea's mom was actually at one point good friends with Porsha's mom. And they had some sort of falling out. And, ever since then, they just don't see it for each other. And, it has oftentimes, as it would, just been kind of an awkward elephant in the room, or just an awkward piece to the puzzle of this friendship, right? And so, she said, it's kind of hard to be Porsha's friend when Porsha's mom is kind of like always throwing shade, or Porsha will tell Shamea. So this is kind of an ex on Porsha's side of, Porsha will tell Shamea, oh, my mom said this about you. My mom says I shouldn't trust you. My mom says the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and, you are going to backstab me. Like, she didn't say the backstab part, but like Porsha has also like twisted the knife and kind of added some tension there as well. So I said, ooh, that's good. And then that's when we saw, you probably all saw this by now, that's when Porsha posted this long paragraph like, wrong road, Shamea, don't talk about my mother. And then she eventually deleted it. It was over that comment. I didn't think that long paragraph, like threatening Shamea, was worth, I don't think it was warranted based on what Shamea said, but have at it, Porsha. And I think she realized that, so she deleted it. So, after that little like piece, after that little sip of tea, Cynthia goes on to say, I just always thought your friendship was so great. And, I always wanted a friendship like you guys. And, Shamea was like, oh, well, maybe I'll be up for grabs. And I was like, damn. And side note, Cynthia's always like wanting friends. I don't know. I feel like as like accomplished as she is, like, and boss lady as she is in her own right, I'm like, oh, like I feel like she's always like I listened to her podcast with Crystal, and I feel like she's always like, well, Crystal, we should do this together. And Crystal, can we do this together? And like she's always trying to like have that duo. We saw her trying to have that duo with Nene and like the friendship contract. I don't know. I wanted to dive in more into Cynthia's psychology and like why she has these codependent like issues. But that's not why we're here. We'll talk about that another time. So in the next scene, Shamea it's very brief. She sits with her sisters. They pretty much told her, like, yeah, we been saw you and Porsha's friendship on the decline. And Shamea says, like, she feels like she's the only one working in this friendship. I was like, damn. More on her later. I got a few things to say about her. So then there was a quick scene. It wasn't necessarily quick, but there really wasn't that much going on. But then Cynthia, Angela, and Porsha go bowling. Angela looked really good. Her outfit was a little weird, but like face and body, yes. Hair, yes. But I was like, her outfit's a little weird. Anyway, but Angela looked good overall. So the girls go bowling. They're joking around, twerking, you know, Porsha doing what Porsha does. Porsha shares, you know, PJ is like, you know, becoming like more sensitive and, you know, still asking about Simon, and Simon is still leaving them on red. So we already heard that. And then she said that she was kind of confused on like this bad friend narrative. And I'm like, are you? Because Nene been telling us since like season 7 that you're a bad friend. And we are now in season 16. But okay, Porsha, I don't know why you're confused. So then we get to a scene with Drew, and she's trying to FaceTime her mom. So Drew shares with her mom that Ralph is trying to get Drew's lawyer thrown off the case, and he is trying to go after the ownership of Drew Sidora LLC. And Drew had, because, you know, things are kind of caught up in court, I guess like their marital assets or things that they have done during the marriage, Drew had set up a separate LLC, a separate business, and like he's trying to go after like 40% of that too. And I'm sorry, like he's such a bitch. Like, bro, you're a bitch. You might as well just get that stamped on your forehead. Because Mr. I pay all the bills, I take care of everything. Why are you going after her money? You should have plenty of it, right? And then she said that he also like removed her access to the security camera. And so at one point she couldn't access the security systems. She got locked out at one point, had to sleep somewhere else. I don't have time for this. That's maddening. That's maddening. I'd have to move to like a hotel suite with the kids or something. I'm not about to be like, your home is supposed to be like your sanctuary and your relief from the outside world. And I'd be damned if I come in these 4 walls and it's mayhem, confusion, chaos, strife, anger, bitterness, bitch assness. I don't have the capacity for that. And I just can't imagine having a freaking gremlin in the basement on his little computer messing with the security system. Ugh. So then we get a scene with Angela's mom visiting Angela. Basically, Angela is like beefing with her sister, and she shares with the mom, like, I would appreciate it if you took more of a side and kind of like stood up for what's right. And, you know, help basically, like, you need to help me check my sister. And instead, you just kind of like are more hands off and you don't want to get involved. And, you know, I understand as a mother, you don't want to take sides, but you also should stand up for what's right. So, I mean, I get the struggle there. But, you know, the person who is in the right could feel like, okay, you don't care. And so, you know, she just shared about that. And it's interesting. They keep bleeping out Angela's sister's name. So she must have like not signed off or must have like sent something of like, don't say my name. So I guess we won't be seeing her on the show given that they can't even say her name. So, we'll see about that. But basically the mom shares that she has a new house. So she's moving out of the house that Angela bought her. She doesn't want to have to rely on Angela. She probably doesn't want to have that over her head of like, hey, next time I curse out your daughter, I don't want you dangling the keys in front of my face and, potentially kicking me out. So, hey, you're grown. If you don't want a house that I bought you, fine, bye. I think it's a sting to Angela just because she had already always envisioned taking care of her mother and taking care of her family. But hey, that's more money in your pocket. So, go rent that out to a tenant and rake in some money. Angela brings up the beef between Charles. There's a lot of strife in this family. My God. Angela brings up the beef between Charles and her mother. And her mom said, I actually do want to apologize to him. I want to write him a letter. I do love him as a son, even though he's practically my age. I said, come on, Shade, Miss Angela's mom. We see who she gets it from now. So, that was funny. And it seems like the mom is at least willing to move forward. And just because she's moving out of Angela's house doesn't mean she's like cutting off ties or anything like that. It looks like she's willing to make things a little bit better in the things that she can control. So, I thought that was good. And I will be happy that I don't have to listen about this anymore. Hopefully they can resolve it quickly and we can move on. We get a quick scene of Kelli teaching her daughter, Chloe, how to drive. Lord have mercy. Absolutely not. See, there are some things that like you can just pay for. I'm going to have to pay an instructor. I'm not, Nope. I don't need any more gray hairs. I don't need to spike my blood pressure. I am absolutely fine with paying someone to take my son out on the open road. It's not going to be me because there was almost like a Clueless moment with like she almost sideswiped a car and I was waiting for her to be like, oh, should I write them a note? Like I was waiting for it. And she's up here just like driving so casually. Like I was like, when I was learning how to drive and she was just like, Mom, relax. And I'm like, no, none of that scene was relaxing. Kelli talking about she should have had some wine before she got in the car. I'm like, yeah, smart thing to tell your teenage driver. It was a mess. So that's all we really got of Kelli this the episode. And thankfully we didn't really get any Brit. And I said, praise Jesus. So then we get another scene with Drew and her mom, and this time her mom comes to visit. Basically in this scene, she just talked about like how the divorce, she doesn't agree with the court order of the living arrangement. And she said, it's basically impacting the kids. I've noticed a shift in their behavior. They're not listening. And, I think it's I just don't agree with the way this is being handled. I'm really seeing a difference in my grandkids. And Drew gets so upset, which if I talk about it too much, I'll probably start crying. Cause like anytime you hear anything like that, just anything dealing with your kids, that's just not the most like favorable, or whether they're hurt or upset, like anything like that's just like a knife. And so she just got upset, and she, I think, is so in it, and it's so day to day, and she's dealing with so much other chaos. It just probably didn't stand out to her the way that it's standing out to someone like a grandma who comes to visit and then leaves, or, has a little bit of space in between the situation. And so, Drew got upset, and I think rightfully so. She just said that she didn't realize they were impacted. So hopefully, it's something that they can work on. And, it looks like Drew is a proponent of therapy or life coaching. So hopefully she can get the kids in some therapy, and hopefully it will be all good. So, child, let's get into this meetup. I'm going to get my phone out for this because there's a few things that I want to talk about. First of all, Shamea, what are you wearing in this meetup? Hot mess, but that's beside the point. Okay, so Porsha immediately notices her weird energy. And so she calls it out and she's just like, I feel like, things are kind of weird. And very early on, Shamea apologizes for not being open over the years. Come again? Years? Mind you, they've been friends since middle school. So how many years are we talking? Are we talking 2 years? Are we talking 4 years? Are we talking 10 years? Are we talking the 20 plus years you've been friends? I'm going to need some specificity on that because that's red flag number 1. And let me just say this, because didn't Shamea say last week when Kelli and I think Angela, when they were confronting her of like, tell Porsha what you told us, like this, tell her, you've expressed that you're not happy in this friendship. You've expressed different things, like let her know. And Shamea said something last week along the lines of, anything I've said to you guys, I've said to Porsha. She's my best friend. And now you're saying you haven't been open in years. So Shamea, get your story straight. Okay? So then Shamea says that Porsha does dismissive things, such as talking over her music when she was trying to share it with the girls. Things like that bother her. And as she's expressing this, Porsha, she sighs. And Shamea's like, she clocks it right away. She's like, am I boring you? And Porsha says, I'm just so uncomfortable. I'm just like, girl. So now this is when I get on Porsha's ass. Because how are you uncomfortable talking to your best friend? It can't be that you're uncomfortable with the cameras. You've been on cameras for 10 years. So this should feel like home. So what do you mean you're just so uncomfortable? You just can't. And Shamea didn't even get into half of it. She literally said, I didn't appreciate it when you talked over me playing my music. I didn't appreciate that. That made you uncomfortable, Porsha? I don't know if you were seriously this thin-skinned or you just don't like any piece of the facade falling off. But girl, we saw you fight Dennis's mom. So the facade's gone. You are not Miss Airhead Barbie. We know very clearly who you are, Porsha. We've seen you very clearly. We know who you are. So I'm not sure what the uncomfort was, but that's what she said. So then, in Porsha's confessional, she says she's confused why this stuff is coming back up. So it sounds like these are things that maybe they did talk about, or maybe she's heard in some capacity that she wasn't happy about. But she said, I'm not sure why these things are coming back up, but she's bringing them up. And then Shamea has a confessional. And she says, Porsha is taking what the girls said and she's running with it. These girls have said terrible things about her and I always shut it down. This is why I compare her to Cynthia. Because Cynthia, I think, low-key liked the fact that she was always going up for Nene. She was always going up for Kenya. The big bad villains were doing big bad villain things, and when people clocked them, or maybe there were some haters, maybe there were some people just hating on them or just being mean girl towards them. Cynthia loved coming in and being the Nene whisperer or the mediator and the let's make everything better. She loved that. That's what she wanted to do in the Ultimate Girls Trip. She thought she was going to be Kenya's wing woman. She thought Kenya was going to be ostracized the way that she was in early RHOA days. But when she was actually making friendships and the girls liked her, Cynthia no longer had a place. Kenya was a little stank on that trip. I didn't like the way she did Cynthia. Again, it's twofold and two things can be true. But in the example that I'm giving, she 100% loved, one of the first things she said was, oh, I knew a lot of these girls coming in and all of them called me and asked me, what's Kenya's deal? Am I going to have a problem with her? What is she like? So she kind of low-key likes that, I feel like. And I feel like Shamea likes that too, because why always bring that up? If you're my friend, why are you constantly like, oh yeah, so-and-so doesn't like you. Oh, so-and-so said terrible things, but girl, I had your back. Okay. So, Shamea, you are one to watch for sure. Okay, so back in the scene, Shamea says, I just want to like possibly salvage this friendship. I was like, okay, dramatic. And Porsha clocked it. She was like, wait, what? We're there now? Like, maybe we're gonna possibly salvage the friendship. Like, she was like, wait, what? Porsha was gagged, but we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So then Porsha says, I'm trying to have a productive conversation with you. And Shamea just stays on her, and she's like really drilling in, but you have to let me express myself. You are dismissive, and I need to feel comfortable talking about my feelings. And she's staying on her, which kudos to you. But we'll get to this in a second. So we see Porsha just gagged. She's stunned, okay? And I said that this is probably because this is the first time that Shamea has actually stood up for herself against Porsha. This is the first time she has stood on business with Porsha, and she didn't give in to the little, she didn't give in to that. She stood on business and said, no, that's cute, but what I'm talking about, we're gonna continue talking about. And that's the first time I feel like she's done this. And I personally think it was some camera balls. I forget who made that term up. I feel like it might have been someone on OC. I don't remember. But basically, once you have that camera on you, you grow a pair that you never had before. And you all of a sudden may say things that you would normally not say in real life. You may do things that you wouldn't do in real life. And you just have like a greater sense of maybe freedom, or desire to perform. And so I feel like Shamea had a little bit of that. I think her grievances with Porsha are real. But the method and the vehicle in which she is confronting her friend, I have a problem with. Because why, if we have been friends for 25 years and you have had an issue with me or issues with me for years, why are you just now telling me about these issues on camera for the world to see and pick apart? And would you have told me this if you did not have a peach and we were filming a reality show? Would you have even told me it? Like, I hate to say this. It's going to sound like, you're blaming the victim. I'm not. I understand Porsha's terrible. Okay? I understand it. But Porsha's terrible, and Shamea is a grown woman. Shamea is no longer in elementary school or middle school where they met, or I think they met. You're not a teenager wanting to sit with the cool kids and willing to do things that you don't want to do and succumbing to peer pressure, or being a victim of Mean Girls, or this isn't that. You are a 40-something-year-old wife and mother, accomplished woman in your own right. So at some point, you have to, as I said earlier, teach people how to treat you. You, Shamea, over the years, have accepted the doormat lapdog role. Is that right? No, it's not right. I don't think anyone should be a lapdog or a doormat. But you allowed Porsha to treat you and place you in that lapdog doormat category. So over the course of 25 plus years, or however long y'all knew each other, that has been the dynamic of your friendship. That is almost like an unwritten friendship contract, Cynthia. That was almost like an unwritten contract of, this is my role in the friendship. This is your role in the friendship. Here's how we interact. I'm gonna pipe up. You're gonna shut me up. I'm gonna go along with it. We have problems. We're gonna sweep them under the rug. We're gonna be best friends and take Instagram pictures. These are the things that you have done over the years to make it very plain that this is just the dynamic of your friendship. Is that right? No, but that's what it was. So let's get away from Shamea's point of view and let's go to Porsha's point of view. Because if that was our friendship, and Porsha's so self-centered, she might think she likes being my my number two. She likes being my best friend. I have her under my wing. She likes that. She might really be that sick to be like, oh, Shamea likes that, because she hasn't shown anything otherwise over the 25 years, right? So in Porsha's mind, she's probably like, things are fine. Okay, things have been a little shaky. We have this like mama beef, stirring in the background. So yeah, things have been shaky. I'm going through this divorce that no one cares about. So I'm a little stressed about that. So we're not as close. But in general, we're fine. Because what do? We sweep things under the rug. We're good. So coming in with that mindset, and then someone, Miss Doormat, comes in and says, I'm mad at you because of this, and this, and this, and no, we're gonna talk about this, and and you be like, girl, what? That's not the dynamic of our friendship. Is that right? No, I don't agree with that. I'm not saying Porsha's right. Porsha's a terrible person with narcissistic tendencies, okay? But Shamea changed the dynamic of the friendship with a camera on them for the world to see. Instead of pulling her friend aside and said, hey, I realized over the years I've took a lot of crap and I did not do a good job at defending myself. However, I want to be better at defending myself because honestly, this has really hurt me. I want to continue being your friend, but I can only be your friend if you acknowledge my feelings and you start treating me more of an equal partner and not like your number two. Would you like to be friends and continue to work and continue to be friends on an equal level? Let me know. Instead of doing that, you brought in a camera crew and said, I have this list of grievances and you didn't come to my wedding 10 years ago and it's just like, huh? So Porsha was gagged. I see both sides. Shamea is 100% in the right to stand up for herself, of course. But Porsha's also allowed to be a little surprised that her friend is all of a sudden wanting to do is all of a sudden exhibiting different behaviors than she has exhibited in the past 20 plus years. So both things can be true, and I think both things are true. Then Shamea says it hurts that Porsha tells her that Miss Diane doesn't trust her, Porsha's mom. And she doesn't like when she hears that light shade. And Porsha was just like, okay, you're just looking for an argument. And I felt that same way. I'm sorry, because this is the first time we're hearing about that. And I understand that friendships, there's a lot, especially with that much history. There's a lot of maybe unresolved things or just a lot. I understand that. But the original things that we have heard about that you're claiming, Shamea, you're claiming the women in this group are bringing up these issues. And the issues that I have heard them say is, oh, I heard she didn't go to your wedding. She wasn't the most supportive when you were sharing your music. And there might have been a couple other things a couple other things that we saw this season of like when Shamea supported Porsha and that nasty comment she made about Angela's husband. Porsha turned around and was like, well, you need to take accountability for laughing. I don't know why, you would laugh. So we've seen like little things like that. Nowhere have we heard about this like mama beef. We have not heard about it. I loved hearing about it, but we haven't heard about it. So it doesn't seem like it's one of the pressing issues of this friendship. I think I think Shamea is mad at the overall treatment. And I think Shamea is mad at the perception of her being a lapdog. So if that's what it is, Shamea, you need to say that instead of, well, you dismissed my music. Well, your mom doesn't like me. Well, you sighed when I tried. Like, you have to, like, when I can't stand when I argue with people. I don't really argue with people, but I can't stand when I observe people arguing and they just pull this out, pull this out, pull this out, pull this out. Are you mad at these 25 things, or are you really mad at this one particular root issue and some of these other fringe things were just kind of the icing on top? Get to the root issue. Why are you really mad? And all of these like little things is not adding credibility to your argument. It looks like, as Porsha said, it looks like you're trying to have an argument. You're just trying to keep this going. You're trying to extend this scene. That's what it looked like to me, and that's what Porsha said in so many words. So then Shamea brings up another issue. We need an issue counter, because now this is what, the third issue that she brought up. She says, I just want us to be the same way that we are off camera. And she's like, do you remember what you said, Porsha, when I asked you, why can't we be the same way that we are off camera, on camera? Remember what you said, Porsha? You said, oh, they would have to pay me more money for that. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know if Porsha, I don't know what the state of their friendship is. It sounds like it's not in a great place. And maybe to show something so personal, Porsha would want more money. Girl, you're not showing us anything. So you probably should have gone that route, but I digress. And so this is like now the third thing that Shamea says. And Porsha says again, why are you trying to argue with me for the show? That's what it's starting to feel like. Some people disagree with me. I agree. I don't always agree with Porsha, but I agree with her in this instance. Because what are you mad at? This is now the third thing. So then in the confessional, Porsha says communication was already strained as they started to film this season. But because of the divorce and things like that, that she was going through, that's when she really needed Shamea. And to that, I say, Porsha, this is your second divorce. Shamea is a grown woman with different things happening in her life. And you should have reached out and said, hey, I really need my friend. Like, these are the weirdest best friends I ever seen. Because shouldn't you be able to say, hey, friend, I need you. I need you. Can we just talk on the phone for an hour? Can I stop by? Can you come over after you drop the girls off at school or daycare? I need you, girl. Can we get in bed and watch The Notebook? I don't understand these friends, because if you are best friends, and they said they were not in a great place, why is it all of this, like all of these mind games of, oh, I needed her, but she wasn't there? Reach out. And then if she ghosts you or isn't there for you, then you can at least say, you can point to that and say, hey, I reached out, I asked for support and you weren't there. But all of this, like, oh, I was going through a lot and you just weren't there. Everyone's going through a lot, boo-boo. Then Shamea says again, I want to see the Porsha who I see off camera. And Porsha's like, okay, this is scary. Porsha says, you're really trying to argue for the show. This is probably the second or third time Porsha has said this. And I agree. And so Porsha's like, this is a lot. This is a lot. And so she goes to the bathroom and cries. And then she comes back and she was like, okay, so do you want to get this food to go? She's such a deflector. Like, she, God forbid you just sit and talk through something. And so Shamea was like, I really came here wanting resolve, but I'll pray for us that we'll work it out. Shamea acknowledges that Porsha is going through a lot, and she's just like, I know you're going through a lot, but all I ask for is that you care also what I'm going through, and you care about what hurts me. And I think that's fair. Like, just because you're going through something doesn't mean you can just be a terrible person. I don't know. At least I don't think that. Maybe there are circumstances. Maybe I haven't gone through enough. I don't know. But I just feel like a quick text, a quick something is better than just like being a terrible friend. So as Shamea is talking, Porsha is like triggered. She is like fidgeting under the table. She's moving silverware. Like her like actions in this part of this scene reminded me of Sheena Shea from Vanderpump Rules when her husband was talking about their relationship at the reunion, and she was just fidgeting and pulling her necklace and dabbing her eyes at the makeup, fixing her hair. Like she was just so fidgety and uncomfortable. And again, dealing with a best friend, it's sad that it got to this point. So finally, Porsha asks, what can I do? Shamea says, don't dismiss me. Porsha says, okay. Porsha cries again, and she says she wants them to get past this. She doesn't want them to break up. And honestly, this part feels genuine. Most times with Porsha, it doesn't feel genuine to me. This part felt genuine. Some people disagree, and they were like, oh, they didn't like that. She was like, okay, got it, check. Some people didn't like that. I didn't love that either. But I think the emotion and how she was handling her in this piece of the scene, early on, she was very defensive and very standoffish and had a wall up. This part, Shamea chipped away, which she shouldn't have had to do with a best friend again. She finally chipped away and got to like the more vulnerable side. And I did believe her in this part when she said she doesn't want them to break up. They apologized to each other. They promised to come to each other directly moving forward if there's a problem. And I'm just like, damn. So this ended on a good note. So why are they beefing now? So I'm like, damn, y'all really might make me tune in. When just 2 episodes ago, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to keep watching. So, time will tell. We'll see. I just want to know like your thoughts. Do you agree with my takes and my assessment on this Porsha Shamea dynamic? Like, do you see the faults on both sides, or are you like Team Shamea, Team Porsha? Let me know your thoughts below. I really appreciate it. If you made it this far, please, please, please give the video a thumbs up. Share it with another Bravo lover. Please subscribe so we can be friends. I really appreciate it. But yeah, that's all I have. Thank you for rocking with me, especially in this longer video. And I appreciate it. So I'll see you in the next video. And until then, bye.